What if I told you that Korean Pear marinade isn't just seasoning your meat, it's actually breaking down the muscle fibers before it ever touches the grill, using natural enzymes that work like a professional tenderizer. And here's the thing, this technique works on literally any cut, even the toughest ones. Today, we're diving deep into the science and art of Korean barbecue marinades. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why Korean cooks have been using fruits and enzymes for centuries to create meat so tender it practically melts on your tongue. And you'll have the exact techniques to replicate it at home, whether you're working with premium wagyu or budget-friendly cuts. Let's start with the core question. What makes Korean marinades so different from everything else out there? The answer isn't complicated. It's enzymatic. Korean barbecue marinades almost always contain 4 core ingredients: fruit, acid, oil, and aromatics. But that fruit isn't there just for sweetness. Pear, kiwi, papaya, pineapple, and even ginger contain natural proteases, enzymes that literally break protein bonds. When you marinate meat in these fruits, you're not just coating the surface, you're initiating a chemical transformation that softens the meat from the inside out. Here's where it gets interesting. This process is time-sensitive. Marinate for too short a time, and you don't get enough enzymatic action. Marinate for too long, and this surprises people, and you can actually over-tenderize the meat, making it mushy and losing that pleasant bite and texture. The sweet spot for most cuts is between 4 and 12 hours, depending on thickness and the specific fruit you're using. Let's talk about which fruits to use, because each one brings something different to the table. Asian pear is the Korean standard for a reason. It's mild, naturally sweet, and contains bromelain, an enzyme that breaks down collagen and elastin without being aggressive. You're getting tenderness without the risk of mushiness. If you're using kiwi, you're working with actinidin, a much stronger enzyme, so reduce your marinating time to the shorter end of that window, maybe 4 to 6 hours max. Pineapple and papaya are the heavyweights. They contain bromelain and papain respectively, and they'll demolish a steak in hours if you're not careful. Most Korean cooks use these for tougher cuts and shorter marinades, sometimes just 1 or 2 hours. Now here's the pro secret that separates home cooks from people who really understand this technique. Ginger isn't just flavoring. Fresh ginger contains zingiber, a compound that acts synergistically with the protease enzymes. It doesn't just add spice, it enhances enzymatic action. That's why authentic Korean marinades always include generous amounts of minced ginger. It's working alongside the fruit to amplify the tenderizing effect.
Let me walk you through the formula for a traditional Korean barbecue marinade that works brilliantly on any cut. Start with 1 whole Asian pear, peeled and grated. The grating is crucial. You want maximum surface area and juice distribution. Add 3 tablespoons of minced fresh ginger, no shortcuts here. Then half a cup of tamari or low-sodium soy sauce. This brings umami depth and acts as a secondary tenderizer. The salt helps break down proteins slightly differently than the enzymes do. Add 3 or brown sugar. This balances the savory elements and helps create a beautiful crust when the meat hits the grill. 2 tablespoons of sesame oil, which isn't just for flavor, it helps the marinade penetrate the meat. 1 tablespoon of rice vinegar for acidity, which enhances enzyme activity. 5 minced garlic cloves, 2 or 3 dried red chilies, and a teaspoon of white pepper. Mix everything together and you've got a marinade that does 5 things simultaneously. Breaks down proteins enzymatically, penetrates meat with oil, adds umami depth, introduces beneficial acidity, and seasons all the way through. Now let's talk application, because this matters more than people think. Cut your meat into 1/4-inch slices, and this is the Korean way. This thickness is ideal because it exposes maximum surface area to the marinade while being thin enough to cook in seconds on the grill. If you're working with thicker cuts like ribeye or brisket, slice them thin after marinating, not before. For thin slices, 4 to 6 hours is your window. For thicker cuts left whole, 8 to 12 hours. Pat the meat dry before grilling. Excess marinade creates steam, and steam prevents proper charring. Here's what happens when you grill this properly. The enzymes have already broken down the muscle structure, making the meat impossibly tender. When it hits a screaming hot grill, and we're talking cast iron or charcoal at 450 degrees or higher, the outside sears in literally seconds. That char creates a crust through the Maillard reaction, building layers of complex, savory flavor. The inside, already tenderized by the enzymatic action, stays juicy because the quick cook time doesn't give moisture time to escape. But here's where amateur grilling fails: overcooking. Because the meat is already so tender from the marinade, it needs less heat time than you think. Thin-sliced Korean barbecue should spend maybe 30 to 60 seconds per side on the grill. Any longer and you're drying it out, wasting all that enzymatic prep work. Let me share a butcher secret that changes everything. Alcohol amplifies enzymatic action. If you add 1 or 2 tablespoons of sake or mirin to your marinade, you're speeding up the tenderizing process without needing extra time. This is why traditional Korean marinades often include these ingredients. They understood fermentation science centuries before we could explain it chemically.
The fascinating part is that this technique works on every cut. Premium wagyu needs less time because the marbling already makes it tender, so you're really just seasoning and creating crust. Cheap cuts, like chuck or brisket, this is where the enzyme marinade truly shines. These tougher cuts, with more collagen and dense muscle fiber, are exactly what the proteases were designed to tackle. 8 to 12 hours in this marinade, and a budget cut becomes indistinguishable from something twice the price. Here's one more pattern worth understanding. Acid and enzyme work together, not separately. The acid in your marinade, whether it's vinegar or citrus, lowers the pH of the meat surface, which actually speeds up enzyme activity. This is why the rice vinegar in our formula isn't random, it's accelerating the proteases. That's why some Korean cooks also use a splash of citrus juice. When you're ready to cook, remember that the browning happens fast. Set up your grill station so everything is within arm's reach. Have your meat, your tongs, your plate, your sauce, make it part of the ritual. Korean barbecue is meant to be interactive, fast, cooked right in front of you. The tenderizing has already happened in your fridge. Now you're just capturing that moment when the meat is perfect. This is the technique that transforms meat at every price point into something restaurant quality. The science is real, the results are undeniable, and once you understand why it works, you'll never look at marinades the same way again. So here's what I want to know. What's your favorite cut to marinade? Have you tried the enzyme method before, or is this your first time hearing about it? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. If you learned something today, hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss a meat technique that actually changes the game. Next time, we're breaking down the truth about dry aging at home, and it's not what you think.